yesterday, today, tomorrow. What's the day after tomorrow? Is it called the day after tomorrow? Or is it called tomorrow? You might find out. I don't know about that. Tomorrow.
I like that.
Yesterday. It's 2 days ago.
Yeah.
That's how
We
they
used
do.
to call it double yesterday growing up.
Did you?
Yeah. Double tomorrow, double
How old
yesterday.
were you when you called it that?
Maybe like 8.
22.
Last week.
Luis, can I get another Red Bull? I'm Red Bullish in a Red Bull world. Liam Gallagher upset me this morning.
What do you do now?
He said on Twitter that he's no longer interested in Oasis ever getting back together. I think because his career's so big, I think he's shitting on his brother again. That's the problem with those two. He's always like, yeah, get the band back together, man. Get the band back together. And he's like, you look like a fucking potato. And you're just like, well, he's not going to, thank you, man. He's not going to make the band again now. You fucked it up. Every now and again, like I can tell Liam's a shit stirrer.
You can tell now.
He's a shit stirrer.
That seems to be all he does.
He doesn't seem as grumpy as Noel.
He was the one that was on the show,
no,
right?
Noel.
Oh,
Yeah,
Noel was on the show.
That was one of the highlights of my life, interviewing Noel Gallagher. I had such a good time. I loved it.
Were you nervous to meet him?
I was more nervous. When I interviewed Brad, I was nervous, and I fucked that up a little bit. But when interviewing Noel, no, I had the question. I knew everything about the guy. I was ready to go.
Prepared.
And I'd been told that he knew who I was, so that made it a little bit less daunting. You know, he'd watched a bit of my comedy.
Yeah, it's the worst when somebody's there and you feel like they're begrudgingly there.
I met Liam once, and I was outside a gig, and he was leaving his gig, and I went, Liam, I'm a big fan. He goes, oh man, you're the fucking guy who does the jokes about drinking. And I said, I do. And he goes, yeah, fucking drinking. He goes, solid, man, fucking solid.
That's sick.
And I was like, what? I got other jokes.
I'd also do jokes about drugs. You see those? Pretty cool.
What's going on this week?
Yeah,
we got gigs coming up. We're going to be in.
Well, let me tell you where you're going to be.
Durham, Charlotte.
Now, I think
Atlanta.
Wait, hold on. This episode, I've already done those.
Mississippi.
No.
Mississippi.
I love Mississippi though.
Yeah, it's Mississippi and Minneapolis. It's cold Mississippi.
You've already done the Durham gigs. You've just done the Durham gigs.
Oh, they were good gigs.
You're going to be in Victoria, Canada at the Save on Foods Memorial Center.
Hey, I'll tell you,
weird name. Save on Foods Memorial Center.
I'll tell you what, all the people of Toronto who have bought special tickets to see the special recording, both of the shows that recording have been sold out, and we've added another show, which is good. I get a feel for the theater the night before. Yeah, the day before we've added another show, so you can come and see that one. And also the good thing about that one is I'll probably run like an hour and a half of material versus the 1 hour you get for the special. You know,
September 22nd, Save on Foods Memorial Center in Victoria, Canada. September 23rd, Paramount Theater, Seattle, Washington. 2 shows there, right?
We added a show in Seattle. I didn't even know about this. It's like one of those things my agents just went, it was showed up on my social media. I guess I'm doing another show. So I didn't even know that one sold out.
Seattle.
So thanks, Seattle.
And then,
but the second show has some tickets to move. So go to the added show.
September 24th, the Keller Auditorium in Portland, Oregon.
That one's going to sell out as well.
There you go. And then a couple weeks after that, you should promote these two, St. Louis and Nashville, October 7th.
Yeah, they still got tickets, but a long way out. Yeah, but they're
not that far.
Yeah, they'll be good shows.
Yeah, there you go. And then you've got other places too. You can go to Jefferies.
I'm about to, to the people of Great Britain and Europe, I'm about to put something on the books for next year.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to be all over Europe, all over it.
Don't forget Asia before that.
I'm already booked in to do Asia in December, but in the new year, I haven't picked the month, but we're in negotiations with a promoter. So there's going to be a full British tour, and we're going to do countries that I haven't played before on tour. There's Poland, Iceland.
Let's all go. You can bring me into my motherland.
Oh my God, I want to go to Iceland my whole life.
I'm going to do Iceland.
I tried to go there. I tried to go to Iceland. There was a winter storm. That was the only show I've ever missed with you. Was when I flew in, remember, and I kept trying to get there and I couldn't get in, and then I came in and you had just gotten on stage. It was in Oslo. They're
proposing 3 cities in Norway. Like, this is a big tour.
We've done multiple shows in Norway. We did Oslo. We did
we're doing 3 now.
One where all the nurse. There's a city in Norway where all the nurses train, and it's the highest rate of STDs. I don't remember the name of the city.
Yeah. The
Fun fact.
highest rate
No
of
way.
pussy.
You can follow us on Instagram at
No.
IDCat Podcast. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/IDCat. And we got merch at idon'tknowaboutthat.com.
There was everything. I've never done a gig in France. I've done gigs all over Europe. Never done one in France. So we're going to do Germany. We're going to do Austria. We're going to do Belgium. And so we're doing Spain. We're doing Portugal. Right. I've never done Spain or Portugal, but France. I lived a 40-minute flight away from France
Italy?
for 10 years. Maybe.
You did it via Zoom.
You met? Yeah. we did a show. Remember we did the show for the yacht company?
Wasn't that Italians?
Yeah.
It was Italian
It was
yacht
Italian
company.
yacht
And the
company.
guy said to you, he goes, "We've been trying to get you to come to Italy." And you're like, "Not hard. You just ask me."
Invite me.
I want to come to Italy. I like the place. I like the people. I like the food. Just make me an offer.
Yeah,
It's
it
like,
can be just drinks. I don't even drink anymore.
plate of pasta.
Yeah.
Just come do it. Like,
So I want to do France, and they were like, they don't like English speak. I'm like, just even if it's like 300 seats, just give me a small venue in France, man. I just would like to go there.
so
I've been to France many times, but I'd like to perform there.
So when that gets announced, of course, you'll see it on Jim's, on his website, on social media, stuff like that. Like
I'm just saying, a lot of people write to me from those countries, mostly from Britain. And then Britain, normally I just do like Manchester, Birmingham, London. We're gonna cover the place, man.
we have listeners in all those countries.
I
so
go to
people-
Glasgow as well.
We have listeners in all those countries, though. People will be excited. And then, as Kelly was saying, our Patreon, please subscribe to that. IDCat Podcast on Instagram, merch store, buy some merch. Check
What
it
I
out.
really want with this tour is that Netflix hadn't released the special yet, so I can do the material.
That would be nice.
I would
every
think-
time I record a special, I'm like, now my life is hell. I have to write new jokes. And every time my management, I go, hey, can you just lay off the gigs for a bit? I haven't got any jokes. And they just laugh at me.
You know,
my management will laugh at me. Like,
they go, "You'll be able to do it. Like, yeah, you got it." And it's like, we believe in you, buddy. And they give you a little thing on the right in your arm. Psh, you got it. It's an hour.
yeah.
It's an hour.
They laugh and they go, yeah, you always say this. Because it's always really stressful.
It's very difficult.
And you always pull it off.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe you should
Alright.
stop pulling it
Unfortunately,
off
you're too
so
good.
well.
Yeah, why don't you become a manager,
Until I
Jack?
don't, man.
Yeah.
Fuck hell.
Also, I have another podcast called the Merman Podcast with Dave Williamson. It's pretty fun. You should listen to it. We don't know what we're doing, but it's fun.
I haven't listened to it yet. I'll listen to that.
Yeah, check it out. It's on other podcast platforms. Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon, all that fucking bullshit.
When's your
So,
gig, Jack? When's this gig we're going to?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow night.
Although
It already happened.
we're
Yeah.
lo-
In the
months
future,
ago.
the past. No, like 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
Oh, well, I'm going out tonight, so the wife I have to finesse this.
Eh,
I'm playing board games tonight, but I don't know if I can get two.
it's
two in a
supporting
trot.
Jack and his
We're
endeavors.
Yeah.
You're on
Not
the
really.
you're on the industry list, so it's a work function.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
yeah.
you go. You're working.
It's supporting Jack in his endeavors.
Yeah, and she loves Jack. Jack's
Yeah.
helped her with. all
Yeah.
her
True,
self-care.
true.
yeah,
That
you
is
got to
true,
spin
that-
it that way.
True that.
Yep.
It's for Jack.
All right.
All right.
Our
I
guest
begged
is
on my
here.
hands and knees.
Let's do this.
Oh, okay.
It's the sound of another sale at Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big businesses. Upstarts and startups and established businesses alike can sell anywhere, synchronize online, in-person sale, and effortlessly stay informed. Scaling your business is a journey of endless possibility. I love how Shopify has a tool and resource that make it easy for any business to succeed from down the street to around the globe. Shopify powers millions of businesses from first sale to full scale. Shopify helps you reach customers online and across social networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps. You can synchronize your online in-person sales plus gain insights as you grow with your detailed reporting of conversion rates, profit margins, and beyond. More than a store, Shopify grows with you. This is possibility powered by Shopify. Go to shopify.com/IDK, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/IDK right now. Shopify.com/IDK.
Please welcome our guest today, Jonathan Stewart.
Now it's time to play.
Yes, no. Yes, no. Yes, no. Yes, no. Judging a book by its cover.
All right, John Stewart. I know you. Big fan of you. No, okay. So, John or Jonathan?
Jonathan.
Jonathan. Okay, Jonathan. You have a boomerang behind you. So I will say this is about cultural appropriation of my people and how you shouldn't be doing such a thing. As an Australian, I'm deeply disturbed by you putting that on that wall. That spiritually means a lot to me.
Does it?
Not really.
It's actually just it's an antenna to an old limousine.
Yeah, it's the back of an old limo.
Yeah.
You got a hard hat. So does your thing involve construction?
Yeah, sort of. Yes, loosely.
Is it architecture?
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
He's throwing you off with the construction a little. He's not wrong, but I wouldn't focus on construction.
All right, so I'm trying to see other pictures. He's got a picture of the Colosseum, I believe, back there. Family, but some books. He's a reader.
The hard hat is something you might want to wear if this was happening.
Are we doing bukakis again?
No. You know what? I'll give you a hint. This
Again, I can't remember the first podcast.
What
If
was
you
it?
do remember the first
What was the
podcast?
first podcast?
First podcast that we did was earthquakes that we
Yeah.
never actually edited.
That's what
Yeah.
we're doing.
Earthquake.
Yeah.
I love his special, man. That was the best comedy special of the year, the earthquake special. Check that out, man.
the comedian Earthquake.
Yeah, he nailed it.
Yeah. There was a comedian named Earthquake. I don't know if you're familiar with him, Jonathan, but
It's a banger. 30 minutes of solid gold.
he's very funny.
I will have to look that up.
Jonathan Stewart is a professor of civil and environmental engineering in the UCLA Samueli. I don't know if I'm saying that. Samueli School of Engineering. Samueli. Didn't get it right either time. UCLA Samueli School of Engineering and an expert in earthquake engineering with extensive experience documenting the effects of major earthquakes in California, Turkey, Taiwan, India, and Greece. His particular expertise relates to the intensity of ground shaking and its effects on buildings, bridges, dams, and levees. Stewart also studies ground failure, which involves permanent displacements of the ground due to earthquakes. And he also led an earthquake simulation testing the strength of California's levees. Can you tell us like a little bit more about like your background in earthquakes and how it led you into this field and so forth?
Sure. Yeah, I've been at UCLA for 26 years now on the faculty. My education is from UC Berkeley. What kind of got me into earthquakes originally was the Loma Prieta earthquake, if you remember, from 1989 up in the Bay Area, which is where I lived back then. And so that happened when I was an undergrad, and I was very interested in why it was that damage happened in some areas and not others that were right next door. So that kind of piqued my curiosity. And as I started investigating it, I realized there was a lot to learn and there was opportunity for great impact in that area. So that steered me in that direction.
Was that the earthquake where Oakland was in the World Series and the stadium
Against San Francisco.
was it San Francisco?
Both of them.
Oh, they were both in the World Series. But it was Oakland Stadium, right? Everything was rattling. Was that?
You're right. It was the A's and the Giants. It was actually, that game was being played in Candlestick Park, which no longer exists.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the highway collapse. I remember that was like that really. Yeah.
Right. So I was in Berkeley. Reasonably close by was the Cypress structure in Oakland near the bayfront, and parts of that collapsed. There was a deck in the Bay Bridge that came down. And that night, it was actually pretty scary in the Marina District of San Francisco. There were out of control fires down there. So, it was pretty ugly in pockets around the Bay Area. But where I was, we felt it, but there was really no damage. So that's what I was talking about. There was this sort of combination of really bad effects in some places and not so bad in others. And, that really, as I say, piqued my interest.
I was once at Dodger Stadium when a little tiny earthquake happened. It was very exciting. The place went whoa, like that. And the pitcher didn't know the earthquake. After he was interviewed, he didn't know that the earthquake was happening because he continued to pitch.
Right.
And it's like he threw a ball right when it happened, and we all went, whoa! And he was like on the mound like this, going, all right, okay, you come out and fucking do it if you can throw so good.
All right, I'm going to ask Jim a series of questions on earthquakes. After I'm done asking him, you're going to grade him on his answers, 0 through 10. 10's the best. Kelly's going to grade them on confidence. I'm going to grade them on et cetera. We'll add all those scores together. 0 through 10, Jim. That's right here. Okay. 11 through 20, like that. And then 21 through 30 is like that right there.
Wow.
That's a big one.
Drunk
For the
man.
audio
Yeah.
only people, Forrest was shaking the desk at various intervals.
I think they could hear it. It was crazy.
Forgot to make categories
Sorry.
again.
No, that was my
That was your-
categories.
okay, all right, sure.
Sorry. Jim, why do earthquakes happen?
Earthquake. If you live on a fault line, right, the plates of the earth that are next to each other, they sometimes can get a bit irritated, like when you're rubbing corduroy pants together.
Why do they move? Yeah.
The different plates and the movement of the earth.
Okay.
Yeah.
What tectonic plates are underneath California?
We have a fault line underneath California.
Yeah. Which plates are there?
What's its name?
Yeah, sure.
Bert and Ernie.
How are earthquakes measured?
On a Richter scale.
Okay.
Ah.
How are earthquakes predicted, and how accurately can they be predicted?
What you mean? Like how far out are they predicted? Like because they always talk like we're going to have a big one coming up in LA.
Yeah, I guess
It's-
maybe can they be predicted, or
You can predict whether if there's a fault line that there, you can do it like anything, like baseball type of stats. You can go throughout the decades. We've had this many earthquakes. That would suggest that the next decade we'll have this many earthquakes, and then when they go from this range to that range and all that type of stuff. So it would just be like averages.
What U.S. state is the most seismically active?
US they would make. I'd say California. Oh, maybe Hawaii.
Mhm.
No, but that's volcanoes and shit. I don't even know if that's the same. I'm going to say California.
What is the location deep inside the earth where earthquakes begin?
The heart and soul of the world.
Okay.
No, lava pit.
Yeah. Do you want me to keep asking these?
Yeah.
Want to skip
Lava
ahead?
pit.
I'll skip ahead. So.
No, that's
What-
cool. That's cool.
I think he's answered it all right. So,
What is the location of the earth?
like Forrest is looking at me disappointed. Like,
like this isn't the premise of the podcast.
Well, we have done this topic before.
Yeah.
We were hoping maybe you retain some.
What
of
is
that
the
information.
location on the Earth's surface above where the earthquakes begin? So the last one was like deep inside the Earth. This
the
is
crust.
okay. How do scientists calculate where the epicenter is of an earthquake?
Where the most vibration comes from. It's where the Richter scale goes crazy the mostest.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the epicenter where it's because you can be in an earthquake, but you can be on the outskirts of it. I've been in earthquakes, plenty of them in LA, but I have never been in the epicenter of the whole thing. I don't believe.
Here you go. Here's one. What's a tsunami?
Tsunami is a giant wave that will come in and it's caused by earthquakes underneath the ocean. And then it causes the big wave and the water all sucks in and then a big wave comes and destroys things to varying degrees of the tsunami.
What is the Ring of Fire?
The Ring of Fire. Bloody.
Hemorrhoids?
Yeah, I was going to go a hemorrhoid joke, but I'm trying to answer it sensibly.
Well, you were just thinking a Johnny Cash song too, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's a song.
Okay, but I don't know.
Prove
That's
me
it?
wrong. Prove me wrong.
Okay. Are earthquakes getting more or less prolific?
I would say they're getting more prolific because every natural disaster seems to be getting more prolific. And I would say it's getting more prolific because of things like fracking and stuff like that and us fucking up the soil. I don't believe they're global warming related, but I do believe we're getting more earthquakes.
How many earthquakes occur a year?
I don't think it's substantially more, but I do think we're getting more. In the whole world?
Yeah.
Including little itty bitty ones?
Sure.
Couple of thousand.
Okay. Is there a connection between volcanic activity and earthquakes? That was one you just.
I would say there is because the rumbling underneath the ground and the lava and all that type of stuff. I believe that little earthquakes could make a volcano erupt, and so I believe yes, they're actually connected. And I'm going to change my answer to Hawaii.
What are the 3 deadliest earthquakes in human history?
I would say that one in Japan where the nuclear reactor all went squiff about 8 years ago, 9 years ago, whenever that was.
Yeah.
I think that one was right up there. The earthquake of 1812 and
okay.
yeah, the 1812 earthquake.
That was a war, but okay.
Yeah, well, that's the only thing we were doing.
Yeah.
The world just stopped fucking turning because there's a war on. The
Sure, okay.
planet don't give a shit.
One more.
And then I'll say the LA. No, not LA. LA is not the biggest one. What's one that's flattened a fucking town, man? The earthquake of the San Fernando Valley, 1811.
Year before.
Mm.
What did the ancient Greeks think were the cause of earthquakes?
The gods. It's always the gods, and I'll say Thor and the thunder and all that type of stuff, and it would be because the gods weren't happy.
And what were the causes of earthquakes in Japanese mythology?
Same thing. There'd be some religious thing. They believe it was Buddha sitting down
Yeah,
because he's a fat fuck.
And what should you do to stay safe during an earthquake?
See, this changes a lot. You should have an earthquake kit in your house. They reckon they used to say to stand in doorways, but that has since been debunked. They reckon now you should get underneath a table. A 4-leg table is a better way to do it. I personally would run out into the street, get out of whatever structure you're in, but they say get under a table.
And what are the 3 leading causes of fatalities from earthquakes?
People not getting under a table. No, debris falling on top of people. And then it would be falling through cracks.
Yeah.
And the next one would be it would be a long-term fatality, lack of water, lack of this, lack of that, flooding and,
Okay. How many people die in earthquakes each year?
42.
And then how is Los Angeles designed to be prepared for earthquakes?
Our houses are made out of wood. That's a big one. Our freeways have little divides in them. We use a different type of concrete than asphalt, so that the things will just separate rather than crumble.
Mm-hmm. What about skyscrapers? How are they designed?
They'd have flexi bits in them. They'd have little
Not
bits
made out of wood, though.
No, not made out of wood, but they would be like seals in between the structure and stuff, so it can wobble a bit.
Okay. And then what are the effects of earthquakes on hospitals and in situations like a pandemic?
Well, the big problem with earthquakes in hospitals, they have the same problem that everybody has, that the building could fall out. But they have bigger problems. They can't lose their electricity. They can't lose their water because these things are vital to keeping the people alive within the hospital. So it's more, they can have generators and stuff like that, but, you don't want to lose power.
Okay. Jonathan, 0 through 10. 10's the best. How did Jim do on his knowledge of earthquakes?
I'm going to go with the 5.
All right.
Sorry, Jim.
Not bad.
I was keeping track. I am a professor. I grade people. It's part of my job.
Yeah.
So you were about 50%.
Yeah, man. I'm all right with
Not
that.
take
bad.
it.
How do
That's
you do in confidence?
You know what? I'm gonna give you a 5 on confidence.
So a
as
bit
well.
shaky.
Yeah, a bit shaky. I mean, I do remember the first time we recorded this, you called the Richter scale an earthquakeometer, so I was very impressed with the Richter scale answer.
The Andy Richter scale.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna give you a 2 on etc. So you're
Oh wow, that's pretty
that's
good.
where you're at right there.
All right.
Yeah. By the way, we did never release our earthquake podcast.
It was our trial run.
It was we
Yeah,
did
we
a
didn't know
trial
what we were
run,
doing yet.
and it was never released. Just so you know, we're not repeating this. So you are our first earthquake expert that will be released. Just so you know.
So I would suggest you don't run out of the building during an earthquake,
Okay.
Yeah,
because one of the leading causes of death is glass and falling debris.
fake news.
I
I just don't want to be inside a structure that's going like that. I'd rather be outside on the lawn.
I've always thought that too, where it's like maybe if you could run into an open field or something like that. But
Well, there's
I'm
so many
sure-
open fields in LA.
Yeah.
It's just
I
like
mean,
tons of them.
I'll find one.
So many of them. So Jonathan, why do earthquakes happen? Jim said if you live on a fault line, the plates and get irritated.
Like corduroy pants.
Why do earthquake? What happens with an earthquake? Maybe you can explain to us.
So plate tectonics are the underlying cause of earthquakes. Essentially, the Earth is still a relatively young planet, and it's really hot on the inside, and it's trying to dissipate the heat from the inside. So there's a process called convection, where the heat comes from the interior towards the outside of the planet, the surface of the planet. And then it gets to the top and it starts traveling horizontally. That hot material cools and it's sort of dragging the plate, which is the upper part of the Earth's cross section. It's kind of dragging that along. And so these plates are moving in different directions on the surface of the Earth. And when you have two plates moving relative to each other, that's a plate boundary and you get a lot of earthquakes.
So is it just basically releasing steam or something? Is that
pretty much. Yeah.
And so is there an argument that earthquakes are vital for the life of the planet?
I mean, it's part of what makes Earth Earth. Yeah. I mean, the fact that we are a young planet and we're releasing this heat is just part of what makes up our whole,
next time there's
atmosphere
an
and everything.
earthquake, I'm just going to yell that out. Live, Earth, live!
It's a necessary evil.
Be you. Now, I mean, might be jumping ahead to some stuff, but now, obviously, the center of the Earth is much hotter than the surface. But would any of the effects of like the just being climate change or anything, it's not going to affect anything with earthquakes the way it does other weather patterns and like that, right? That's not even. Climate
change doesn't affect earthquakes.
Yeah,
okay. Affects lots of other things and other natural disasters, but not earthquakes.
Yeah.
So I must have got a point for that.
Yeah. Okay.
But so us people who live in California, right? We laugh at the people in Florida, like, haha, you're all going to be underwater, you idiots, like that, right? You don't believe in global warming and you're stupid. And then we
people believe in global warming in Florida.
But you know the argument, right? We make jokes about Mar-a-Lago being under the sea and all that type of stuff, right? We make jokes about it, and then when it comes to us, we're like, hey, you got to live your life.
Yeah.
We're on these bloody plates that are about to bloody destroy us, and we're like, what you gonna do? Do you think it's silly to live in California? Do you think that like in LA, that's like you're a moron for doing this?
No, I mean, I don't think you or I are morons.
You speak for yourself.
We have to be very careful. We have to understand what the impacts of the earthquakes are. So how strong will the shaking be? How can we design structures to resist them? But we can do that. And, you look around the country, every place has its natural hazards. Ours just happens to be earthquakes.
I once was you ever been in one where it rocks and then you're like, when it's little, it's a bit of fun. You're like, ooh. And then it goes up a gear.
Yeah.
Like it just like the dial gets turned, then it's whoom. And you're like, oh, because then you're like, if it goes up another gear, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
But this first gear, and that's when you get a bit scared, and then it miles down. You go, and then you ring everyone up. You go, that was a bloody big one. I know what I like. I like watching like a newsreader who's doing live news duck under their desk. That's the best because they break character so fucking quickly. They always start off with, and also in the news, this thing and problems in Ukraine. Oh no! Oh fuck me!
I prefer the shaking ones to the like rolling ones though. The rolling ones make me feel nauseous for like days afterwards. It's so bizarre.
I was in Joshua Tree when that big 4th of July earthquake came, and we saw it ripple over the terrain. Yeah. It was really cool.
My nephew was when I was still living in Venice came out when he was like 10, and he decided to learn how to skateboard on Venice Beach, and he had one of those longboards. And he was riding on it when an earthquake happened and he fell off and he's like, I'll never get this. And I'm like, no, there was an earthquake. He just thought he was uncoordinated.
That's such bad timing. Oh my God.
We were in Japan.
So you may remember that earthquake there was the July 4th and then there was a much larger one the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that my group does is we go investigate after an earthquake happens. And we had some people there after the first one. And we got back to our hotel at the end of the day, and we're just getting ready to go for dinner when the much larger one hit. So we were actually standing in the parking lot when that happened. And it was so intense that I had to get down like a short stop in order to keep from falling over.
Yeah. That one was crazy.
Yeah, but they're a bit of fun though, aren't they?
Well, I was on the top floor. I lived in an apartment complex at the time, and I was on the top floor, and it really shook. Like my TV almost fell off the stand. And the worst part is I was dog sitting my friend's dog, and it was the compilation of fireworks around the 4th of July, then the first earthquake, then the second earthquake. I was like, this poor dog is so traumatized.
There was an earthquake. I think I probably mentioned in the last, but we never aired. There was an earthquake that happened, I'm going to say 8 years ago, because Hank was very little and it was in the morning and the whole house went like that. And like I woke up like, but the scary thing about it was all my son's toys were motion activated, right? It's because he's one. So they're all like, you push him a little bit. So there's always like, there's this puppy going, welcome to my learning show. Here I am to help you. Like this, right? Another like a cow noise was coming out of another bloody toy. Like that. It was like a fucking Spielberg movie, man. Terrifying.
Yeah, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
What tectonic plates are underneath California? Not Bert and Ernie.
Okay, so the plate boundary that runs through California, I'd use the word through, not underneath, is the San Andreas Fault.
San Andreas Fault. They've made movies about it.
Yeah, you should have gotten that one.
I know that one.
And they shot the San Andreas movie in Australia.
Yeah.
Dang, double whammy.
Oh man,
That was-
why wouldn't they just shoot it here?
That was the
in
thing.
California?
That was the thing
I don't
when I met Neil Finn. I was at a gifting suite and I met Neil Finn, the lead singer from Crowded House, and I decided my opening conversation would be this: "Hey Neil, I'm a big fan. I've seen you in concert 4 times. I would have seen you 5 times, but in Newcastle there was an earthquake and the venue fell down that morning, so I obviously didn't go to that show." Right? Thinking he'd laugh. And he goes, yeah, a couple of our roadies died setting up the gig that morning. And I was like, that would be the one.
Real tragedy.
I thought I
Really messed that one
Because
up.
then he knew I wasn't lying because I knew
Break the
that the
ice.
Crowded House
Yeah.
gig didn't happen because of the earthquake in Newcastle. And then I fucked it. Man.
Yeah.
How are earthquakes measured? Jim said the Richter scale. That's is that correct?
So the how is seismometers, right? So seismometers measure the ground shaking at different points. And if you have many seismometers, which of course we do, you can figure out where the slip started and you can figure out about what size the surface of the fault was. And so the size of the earthquake is essentially taken from the area that ruptured and the amount of slip, and that's converted to magnitude.
So I always look at them, they always look like those lie detector things where the needle goes up and down, right? So it's a needle on a bit of paper and the needle goes up and down as the earth's shaking. So do we have lots of these? Are they always turned on, or is there like, oh, Barry's got one and then he's like, I fucking was vacuuming. I unplugged it, so that one wasn't working. Or are they just in labs, or are they what? Okay.
Yeah, are they out in like
They're
mountains?
digital now, so, and there's thousands of them in California alone. So, but your memory is good. I mean, we used to record on film actually, and it was an optical film measurement, and then we'd go digitize them. So that was much slower. The process of figuring out where the earthquakes were and their size took human interaction and could take a few days.
When
we can do it quick.
When you experience an earthquake, do you do the same thing I do and then go on to like some earthquake web page where they show you the little
Twitter.
they show you the little blobs of red where it actually happened and you go, I knew it. I knew that was one.
I do.
Yeah.
The first thing I do if I don't feel like I'm in danger is I try to record the amount of time from when I first feel something. And you were talking about this earlier, like it starts kind of mild and then it gets more intense.
I haven't felt anything for years.
So if you can record the number of seconds roughly from when you first feel it to when it gets more intense, you can actually make a guess of the distance to the earthquake.
Oh, so you
It's
can,
like thunder and lightning.
so it's like thunder and lightning where you count in between or whatever. But
Yeah,
so how
it's
does
different waves.
how do you know you're in the epicenter? How do you go, oh, I'm in the epicenter?
Well, you'd get whacked pretty hard.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have that time lapse between the two. It would just start out intense right away.
I wasn't a good school student, and I remember just like being in school, like I need a natural disaster, but there was only really bushfires in Australia, and I knew where they were coming. They took a week to get there, like that, right? I reckon as a school kid in California, I'd be like getting a history question. I'd be like, "Come on, earthquake!"
There are no snow days here, so
Yeah, I'd be rooting for it.
And so, prediction of earthquakes can they be predicted or with any accuracy? Or I mean,
my answer was baseball stats.
So Jim's answer on this one was pretty good, actually. So, when people say predicted, sometimes what they mean is like the weather, and that we can't do. So we can't say it's going to be an earthquake on Friday, something like that. But what we can do is something along the lines of what Jim said, which is if you have a fault and you know where that fault is and you can see how many earthquakes it's producing over time, that's a pretty good indicator of what's going to happen in the future. So we basically map the faults. We make measurements to try to see how much movement's happening across the fault. And then we use that information to make forecasts of future earthquakes and their size.
This might sound a bit hippy dippy, but I heard all the sea lions leave, like Marina Del Rey, like a couple of days before an earthquake. Is there animal intuition that we know of, or is that just bullshit?
There's some really compelling anecdotes like that that are reported. The thing that's tricky is, how often do they do that and then there isn't an earthquake?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you study it that way, it's kind of indeterminate. It's hard.
Yeah, someone put chum in the water over there. Everyone's freaking out. Is there new fault lines, or are all the fault lines in the world already established?
We keep finding new ones, and they're new to us. The Earth knew about them all along.
So there's not new ones that are created as such.
Not really, no. I mean, over geologic time, yes, but over the time span of like human occupation of California, no. They're here. We just take a while to find them.
Are there any countries with zero fault lines? Like I know
I'm going to say no, but there would be countries with faults that are likely inactive. So that
like the UK has hardly any, but when I was living there was a small earthquake in Dudley, which is just outside of Birmingham. Worst accent you've ever heard in your life. And they were just like, and the house rumbled and everything. Right? And there was just like the news was just a picture of a couple of knocked down chimneys. It's big time.
Even the UK.
Yeah.
They've got them.
Yeah, but I guess there isn't a lot of earthquakes in the UK because I just think about the way they build things there.
Everything's brick and everything's next to each other, joining walls
on top of each other.
Yeah, God.
Just little rocks.
Yeah, no, historically they haven't had earthquakes. Otherwise, their architecture's shit.
They're not on a plate boundary.
No.
So we're on a plate boundary and they're not. That's the difference.
But it rains all the time.
Yeah, and so when they're predicted, because I've always read stuff where they're like, eventually there will be like, and I don't know if it's seismologists or actually people that study it, but there's always this thread, at least you read something like there will be a big earthquake and part of LA will fall in the water. So these threats and stuff. I mean, is that a real prediction or something like that? Or is that?
We're not going to fall in the ocean.
Okay.
We are going to get a big earthquake.
And how will the valley be is what I really am interested in.
Well,
I just love Six Flags, man.
There's a lot of faults bounding the valley, and there's liquefiable soils in there. So, the valley has had the two big Southern California earthquakes in the last 60 years or so. San Fernando.
Is it mostly hot places that seem to have earthquakes? It feels like hotter places have more earthquakes. You never hear one like in Norway, it was snowing down and snow went everywhere, or am I just an idiot?
In Norway, no, but Nepal has its fair share of earthquakes, and that can get pretty cold.
So we didn't actually talk about this, and it was in your bio. We talked a little bit where you talk about the permanent displacements of the ground earth earthquake. You just mentioned liquefaction, landslides. So when the ground gets liquefied, what does that mean? You just mentioned that.
Yeah. So liquefaction is when you have soil that loses strength during the earthquake. It's because there's shallow groundwater. It experiences strong shaking, and the pore pressure in the water goes up, strength goes down, and then the ground can really move a lot. It can flow. Structures that are resting on the ground can topple over because there's no more bearing capacity. So one of the most famous recent examples of this was Christchurch, New Zealand, 2011, which really got whacked by liquefaction.
I was just in Christchurch, and it's still not rebuilt from this earthquake. I'll say this about Christchurch: you can park your car anywhere because like every third building was knocked down.
Yeah.
And they're just
I've been there too. Yeah,
there's just parking lots there now, just all over the place, and you're like, oh, it's very convenient, this town. But like I was there about 2 years after it happened. There was still like churches with big holes in them and stuff like that. Yeah. And the New Zealand,
they haven't decided quite what to do with the churches. Like, I've been there too. I've been there a couple of times.
The New Zealanders were up for a laugh because I was there going, oh, beautiful town. You should finish these buildings. And they all laughed. They didn't give a fuck. They were all laughing.
Yeah, because I remember I watched a documentary on the new football stadium getting built, and they mentioned that the way they were building it was all these things they were building it for earthquakes specifically, and one of them was that liquefaction. I said liquefaction, but liquefaction was the way they were building it to prevent that. It was really interesting.
Or was this in Christchurch? They were building.
No, the football stadium here at
SoFi?
the SoFi Stadium. I mean, it's a pretty cool documentary on I think it's on Netflix. Just the amount of stuff they do to build it.
But also Christchurch.
Yeah.
They did build I guess it would be a rugby stadium. And they have liquefaction there.
They're talking about putting a rugby league team in Christchurch as one of the new things, but I don't know. Earthquake town, man. It's a nice city, Christchurch.
Yeah. What U.S. state is most seismically active? Jim said California. Changed it to Hawaii.
California.
Yeah,
I mean, Alaska is a competitor, but I would go with California there.
Yeah, I was thinking Alaska. And then, what is the location deep inside the Earth where earthquakes begin? Is it the heart and soul or lava pit?
The core.
Yeah.
Okay, so remember what we talked about with the dissipation of heat, and you have the flow of heat that is moving the plates along, and it's really within those plates that the earthquakes happen. So pretty much 5 to 20 kilometers depth would be typical for an active region like California. It can be deeper in subduction zones like up in the Pacific Northwest.
Okay. And then the location on the Earth's surface above where the earthquakes began
that's the epicenter, which Jim got right, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. What and was I right about the fracking and all that, or is that just bollocks?
No, you were right about that. So not always, but sometimes when we undertake fracking and then the injection of the waste fluids back into the ground after the fracking, we get more earthquakes happening. So Oklahoma is the famous case here in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
So that question that was, are they getting more or less prolific? He said they are. He thinks they're getting more prolific, and one of the reasons he said is fracking. But are they getting more prolific in general, just naturally as well too? Or
so if you were to kind of screen out the induced earthquakes from the fracking and that kind of thing, they're not changing. You know, the tectonic processes don't really change over time. It can seem like there's more. You might just by random chance get, a big earthquake in 2010 in Haiti and in 2011 in Japan. But if you sort of look over the broad view, they don't really change in rate over time.
2011, it was that long ago.
in Japan?
Yeah, that long ago.
Yeah. And I already as soon as he just said a couple of years in different places, I already thought of probably where the worst earthquakes are.
I used to do
probably Indonesia. That one was really bad. Yeah,
I used to do a routine about that because in Japan, the nuclear place, the factory, whatever you call it, the
Fukushima.
Yeah, so that got teared down. It was very similar time to when Obama was not Obama, Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
Was killed and they dumped him in the ocean.
Oh, yeah.
And I used to joke about, we're supervillain, man. We're going to make Godzilla.
Right. Something to look out for.
Osama bin Laden. I've seen enough bloody Godzilla movies to know how this all plays out.
And then I think you already mentioned that's how you calculate where the epicenter is, right? With the Tsunami.
So once you figure out where the slip starts, then you project to the surface and that's the epicenter.
I think I got it.
Tsunami, Jim said, it's a giant wave caused by earthquakes in the ocean. Now, this one's always the scariest to people. So that is
terrified.
is that the only way? That is what a tsunami is, right? It's just a shifting of the plates under the ocean.
And whale farts.
Yeah.
So tsunamis, Jim basically was right. The cause of it is because there's a vertical displacement of the seafloor from an earthquake, or it could even be from a landslide in the sea. But like in the terrible tsunami in 2011 was definitely a shifting of the seafloor.
It's like when you see those wave pools at water parks and you hear that bang and then a big wave comes out.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah. And then whenever you see the video, I know when the videos go online, people will inevitably comment underneath them like, wave doesn't look that big. And I guess they've just never actually been in the surf before to understand how powerful water is. And they're just like, doesn't look that bad. I could be in that. I'm like, oh, sure. Okay, the entire ocean coming at you.
Tsunami is like my biggest irrational fear. I don't live near the water.
Yeah, you could be driving down near Venice.
Well, I used to live in Costa Mesa, and like 3 minutes from my house, there was a tsunami route sign, and I was just like, I got to get out of here. Drowning is my worst fear.
My biggest fear is spelling tsunami.
Yes, that's a tough
one.
All right, try it.
is a silent T.
Mhm.
Good.
Well, you got to spell it.
Yeah, silent T is the first
Okay,
one.
so T. All right, T.
This guy.
So far, so good.
TSUMAI.
You're close. TSUNAMI.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't see all this syphilis tsunami billboards all over Hollywood on the drive home
I
from the
see
show?
him. I don't recall things.
Yeah. What is the Ring of Fire?
Okay, so yes, leaving Johnny Cash aside for a moment.
He's useless, isn't he? No one listens to his music. Everyone says they like it. Like, I don't give a fuck what anyone says. Johnny Cash was a hack.
I'm a bit of a fan, but anyway,
Everyone's a bit. Everyone's a bit. But have you ever been driving down Sunset listening to it in your car? Never.
You know, it probably comes up in random mode on the iPod.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Never by choice.
So Ring of Fire is around the perimeter of the Pacific Plate. And we are actually on the Pacific Plate, not the North American Plate, which would be, Las Vegas is on the North American Plate. The Pacific Plate is moving gradually to the northwest. And as it does so, it causes earthquakes in some areas, like here in California. It causes volcanoes and different kinds of earthquakes in the Pacific Northwest, Alaska, Japan, and so on. So kind of all the way around the rim of this Pacific Plate, there's high levels of geologic activity.
Okay.
Whoa.
Why is it called the Ring of Fire? I thought there'd be like volcanoes and stuff associated.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, there's volcanoes
perfect.
in some areas, just not all.
Okay, and
So Japan has them, Alaska has them, Pacific Northwest, Sumatra.
And so to Jim's point earlier, volcanoes and earthquakes, are they like go hand in hand? Are they like related, or are they separate, or are they just kind of? What's the?
Well, I guess I'll say sort of. You can definitely have earthquakes without volcanoes. We pretty much have that here in California, right? Our earthquakes on the San Andreas Fault and all of our local faults, there's no volcanoes related to that. On the other hand, volcanic eruptions usually are preceded by small earthquakes, and that's actually how volcanologists can kind of tell something's brewing. And then they both happen along the Ring of Fire. So in that way, they're loosely related.
They're loosely related. But you wouldn't want them both at Thanksgiving.
Right. Yeah.
Like
I see.
they're
A lot of
related.
tension.
Earthquakes like this fucking fuck off, fucking like that, and then like fucking volcano. Don't let that kind of erupt. Oh, don't talk politics in front of that prick. He'll go off.
I hear you.
Don't get me started. How many earthquakes occur a year? Jim said a couple thousand.
It's gonna be more.
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple numbers here but you really have to say what magnitude you're looking at. So for us engineers and scientists, we would say, well, how many magnitude 7 or up or 8 or up earthquakes do we get per year? So those numbers I have, we get about 12 magnitude 7 plus earthquakes per year on average, and about 0.8 magnitude 8 plus earthquakes per year, or about 4 every 5 years.
Right, because I think I've been in a couple of 4s and 5s, right? Those little ones, like
those would be thousands, many thousands.
Yeah, the 4th of July one was what, like 6.9, or what was it over 7? I can't remember.
First one was 6.4, and the second one was 7.2.
Okay, yeah.
And what's the biggest ones in history? So we already know the 1812 one, and what's the other two?
The three deadliest. These were deadliest, not biggest.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest in magnitude is that I'm aware of is the 9.5 in Chile, 1960. That's huge.
Yeah,
I can't even imagine how brutal that would feel. Like,
and that's a cold place.
Yeah.
And
parts of it are, yeah.
Chile.
Chile.
The interesting thing about magnitude, it's not like the shaking would be that much more intense in a 9.5 versus an 8 or even a 7.5, but it would last a lot longer.
Yeah, because the one in Japan, wasn't it like 20 minutes or something, or am I wrong? Or was it
2011?
Yeah.
It was not 20 minutes, thankfully, but it was minutes. In some areas,
90 minutes, 45 seconds.
How many minutes? Sorry.
Like 3 minutes or so.
Yeah, that's
Feels like 20 when you're in it.
when I
Yeah,
first,
if you've had an edible,
yeah.
that'll go on for a long time.
Well, man, this
Yeah,
edible's
that's-
strong.
When I first moved here, I was here probably a month, and there was one here, and I think it was like a 4.2, and that was the first. I moved here from Florida, and maybe they're in Florida. I'd never felt one in Florida, but I remember freaking out, and it was like 3 seconds maybe, and to me that seemed like forever.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine minutes of that magnitude too, because that was like 6 or 7 the Japan one. or so.
Eventually, it would go. Like if it keeps going on for a while.
A minute or two would be.
Yeah, but if it
insane.
goes on for like
You get used to it.
12 minutes or something, I might go to Whole Foods and buy something.
It's
You know what I mean? Like
Jim's all of a sudden
yeah.
asleep on his couch.
Well, like,
It's just
I'm
rocked him to
It's
sleep.
like, you know, what I'm thinking is probably traffic's free at the moment. Everyone's not there.
yeah. Get some stuff done.
Yeah.
Go to the bank. Okay, so because I follow a thing
I
on
go out in
Twitter.
the street and say, "Sorry, everyone, I farted."
Yeah, some
Just
jokes
to get a laugh.
Yeah, you got to loosen everyone up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a thing I follow is LA Quake Bot on Twitter
Mhm.
or something like that. I think it's that. And every day there's like there's like a 0.8 one,
Yeah.
a point
Oh,
one.
yeah.
Point,
All the
happen
time.
they
all
happen
the time.
constantly. So
I'll
there's
go
like,
over to my
yeah.
next door neighbor's house, knock on the door, like while the earthquake's going. Can I get that shovel back that I lent you? Always lending shovels.
so where I don't think we asked this. This was what continent has the least amount of earthquakes, or what place has the least amount of earthquakes? Like, where do you go?
I'd say Australia would be the continent with the least amount.
I don't know.
Actually, it's Antarctica.
Oh, that's cold.
That's because no one's up there to check.
Down
It's
there.
down there below.
It depends which way you're traveling.
That is true. Yeah, good point. Yeah, if you're upside down, yeah. We'll do an
Australia,
episode of
everything's
that,
upside down. That's
okay.
north.
Yeah.
Is there a connection between volcanic activity and earthquakes? We just talked about that. Earthquakes and fire. I didn't ask this question, but why? I mean,
Well, there's plenty of reasons why earthquake and fire would go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Because you've got the tearing down of power lines, you've got electricity problems, you got that. I see that as an opportunity to burn things.
Mhm.
There's loads of reasons. Of course, fires. If your plumbing's going to fuck up, if your electricity fucks up, fire hand in hand.
Mhm.
Am I right?
Yeah, well done.
All right, 6 points.
The earthquake doesn't directly cause fire. It's not like fire is, coming out of the fault like a blowtorch or something. But yeah, they cause gas pipes to break. They can down power lines, and some of the worst impacts of earthquakes are fires ignited by them.
How accurate was the original Superman with Christopher Reeve, where Lex Luthor bought up a whole lot of land in Nevada so that LA would fall into the ocean and he'd have oceanfront property? Is that a good idea? Would have that worked?
No, I don't think Lex Luthor had the right idea there. We're not going to fall into the ocean.
I feel
And it's
like
too
that-
hot in Nevada.
That was one of when you break it as a kid, you go, that's a plausible thing that a mastermind criminal would do. And now you look at it like, that's a stupid idea.
Should have hired a seismologist.
Because then you got to sell the land off later, and then you got to develop the properties, getting construction people.
oh yeah,
Just-
permits. There's
Yeah.
environmental surveys you got to do. It's all
Like
those
it's
things.
good because he was doing it in a no state income tax, so that would have been nice.
And the deadliest earthquakes. So I don't think we do we know what that is? The three or we had 3 deadliest.
Yeah, I mean, so the most deadly earthquake in human history is in China from the 1500s, about 800,000. In modern times, the worst is Haiti, 300,000 in 2010.
Oh, I remember Haiti.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah,
That was really bad.
that was a bad one, wasn't it? Yeah. That was
and
no
that,
good.
But that's probably goes back to what we're talking about as far as structures and like what people live in and what they can afford to live in.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the problem.
Right.
Right. It's not like their shaking was more intense than ours would be for the same size earthquake, but their structures are not in good shape.
We here in California probably the most, because it feels like we're always talking about earthquake and earthquake insurance and earthquake this and earthquake that and building a house. I feel like we're very earthquake ready. Is there any place in the world that has a huge fault line where you look at it like, fuck, those guys aren't ready? They're not ready.
Yeah. Yeah. Plenty of them. Most developing countries, and even some non-developing countries. Like, one place that I've spent some time and worry a lot about is Istanbul in Turkey. That's a very dense city, a lot of tall buildings. and they're non-ductile, so they're really vulnerable. We know those kind of buildings come down.
You could argue that New Zealand wasn't ready, really. They didn't have the architecture for it. I'd never heard growing up about New Zealand earthquakes or anything like that. They weren't prepared for that at all.
They were, liquefaction was a big part of the story in Christchurch, but not the whole story. There was also non-ductile buildings that came down. There was huge clouds of dust after the earthquake from all these collapsed buildings.
When you say non-ductile, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, sorry, that's an engineering term. So ductile means that you can take an element and bend it, and it will retain some strength. So it has the ability to deform, and that's a really good characteristic in an earthquake. So imagine that there's something between my hands here and I'm deforming it. Non-ductile would mean as soon as I start to deform it, it breaks, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I once saw a Mythbusters, right? They did you see that? They had like an earthquake plate. Like they had this a platform, and they built a brick house on top of it, and then they did the earthquake, and it just fell down. And then they did the wooden house, and it went for 3, 4, 5 times as much earthquake.
Yeah.
Like it was unbelievable, the difference.
Yeah.
It made me very confident to live in a wooden house.
Yeah.
Wood is ductile. Yep.
And is that why I believe, I might be wrong because they do it in Hong Kong as well, in China and all that, they use bamboo for scaffolding?
Well, they probably do that because it's plentiful and, nearby and cheap.
Yeah, but they'll do it on fucking skyscrapers, man. It will be all bamboo. Do you remember that living in Hong Kong?
I remember seeing it when I went there with
It's
you.
all bamboo. It's crazy.
It's all bamboo and it's all tied together. Fantastic. And it looks as sturdy as all balls.
Well, when I moved here to California, I'm from Miami, Florida, and I know you guys know. I'm telling Jonathan, but and so everything there is hurricanes. So you build everything at a cinder block, and everything's to withstand wind and that. And so when I moved here, I would see things being built, and it would just be wood, and I'd be like, "What the hell? You could never build that in Florida. They would not even meet a code." So I thought things were being built poorly here. I was like, "This looks like shit."
Oh, wow.
And then I never thought about earthquakes and then I moved here. I'm like, yes, that makes sense. It's got to like.
They don't feel as sturdy as a brick house, though. I've lived in brick homes.
Well, of course, but they have, for earthquakes, it makes sense. You want them to be flexible, like Jonathan was saying. You want them to be flexible, so it makes complete sense. Like,
aren't there some buildings that are like built on springs or something? Like
well, I don't know. We can jump ahead to that. Like here, how maybe we can talk a little bit more about it. Like our earth skyscrapers, are they designed because they're made of metal and stuff? So how are they designed?
Rubber bits in the joints.
Yeah, that's what he said. Rubber bits, flexi bits. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing I would say about skyscrapers is that each one of them is its own unique structure. So they're not cookie cutter. And what that means from an engineering point of view is somebody really looks carefully at the specific structural system. They simulate what an earthquake does to it. And if it doesn't do well, then they adjust in the design and try to get it to a point where they're pretty confident that it's going to survive the earthquake. Now, physically, the way they do that most often is in the middle of the building, there'll be walls that go all the way from the base to the top, and the elevators are in there, for example, stairways. And these walls are what carry the lateral force. And then what is out around it is just kind of gravity systems. But it's the walls that do the heavy lifting in the earthquake.
All right. So what do I tell my kids to do when there's an earthquake? Because I said get under a table, not a doorway. Was I right there?
So if you're talking about during the earthquake itself, so you feel that initial shaking, what you should do is drop, cover, and hold on. So drop means you get down on your knees, and cover means you take one hand and you put it behind your head to sort of shield yourself if something falls, so it hits your hand, not your head. Hold on is where you take your other hand, and if you can, you grab onto a table or something like that to sort of keep yourself steady.
And if you're in a multiple story place, you want to be higher, lower? Where do you want to be?
Empty your fridge. You get in the fridge like Indiana Jones in the last movie.
Okay.
Of course, you don't have any control once the shaking starts, right? You are where you are, but it doesn't make a big difference.
Okay.
If the one thing I would say about that, though, is a lot of structures are weak on the first floor, and because they might have, say, a storefront there, and so there aren't as many walls. And when collapses happen, they often do happen on that very first floor.
Right.
So maybe that's an argument for avoiding that.
So if you're outside, if I was like walking my dog on the sidewalk, then what do you do? Like if there's a tree, you get away from trees, or
you know, if you're outside, this is what my situation during that Ridgecrest event. You're pretty safe. I mean, just keep yourself from falling over. But you know, as long as there's not a power line over you or something, you're good.
Should you lay down?
I suppose you could, or at least get into a crouched position like I did, just to keep yourself from falling over. But you really don't have much danger in that situation.
If you see a super elderly person who's fallen down, should you grab them and put them over your body because they've already lived a long life and use them as a shield?
And then say something wise to me. Yeah.
The hard-hitting questions.
I know Jim thinks earthquake kits are stupid. Do you have one?
I have one.
Yeah, I know, but you think it's dumb.
I think it's dumb.
So the reason for the earthquake kit is after the earthquake, right?
It's got a tent in it. Like, if we get to that, I'm already Mad Maxing. You know what I mean? Like, I got a wind on radio.
No, what you've always said is if your house is collapsed, the earthquake kit is in your house.
Yeah, the kit's in the house. It's like I could find all these other things in my house in the rubble the same way that I find the earthquake kit.
Well, the odds are your house will be standing, and you know, you may have cut up feet or something like that because you've walked through glass or whatever, and so earthquake could be pretty handy.
Yeah,
you know, one of the things you should have is water.
Yeah, I've got water. I've got water stocked up, ready to go.
Yeah,
good. That's really important.
We did a survival episode, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. After that episode, I almost bought a survival pack, and then I didn't.
Yeah, I still haven't bought the earthquake kit.
I bought my earthquake kit after, like the day after one of the earthquakes happened, and the guy's like, "We've been moving a lot of units."
No, after our survival, we had an episode on survivalism. I like had all these backpack like tabs opened, and there was like one that was like $300, and it was the shit back then. And then I never bought it, so I'm dead. And then
I've had mine for like 9 years. The water in there's got to be terrible. I don't care how good you vacuum sealed it.
Yeah, you gotta drink it and switch it up. Effects of earthquakes on hospitals and situations like a pandemic. I gotta imagine it's not good. Like Jim said, lose their electricity.
The effects of earthquakes on hospitals. So hospitals are kind of a special case in California. We actually passed a law after the Northridge earthquake in 1994. It says that hospitals have about a 30-year period, I think it was. And after that, they should be usable after the earthquake, which might seem kind of obvious, like shouldn't all buildings be usable after an earthquake? But that's actually not the way the building code sets it up. Most buildings are just intended to not kill you. And as long as you can get out alive, that's considered success. Whereas for hospitals, you should be able to use it after the earthquake. And so we're well on our way towards getting there. We're not all the way there, but you know, there is a much higher design standard. Now, one of the things that Jim mentioned in his answer that was quite good is it's not just the structure, right? If the structure is fine, but the plumbing isn't working and the electrical systems are down and all this equipment has fallen off the lab benches and stuff, then it's not really functional. So there's more to it than just keeping the structure intact.
Yeah, like
the whole thing has to function.
Somebody in the ICU is not going to have a shit if you walk in there with your wind-up radio.
Yeah.
Listen to a bit of talk back. That'll cheer you up.
Yeah. And then just another question. Are the streets really crappy in LA because of earthquakes, or are they just crappy because
no one gives a shit?
Corruption.
You mean like the pavement and all the potholes and stuff like that? That's a separate problem.
Political corruption. Okay. All right. Here's a part of our show called Dinner Party Facts. We ask our guests to give us like a fact or something obscure, interesting that are about this topic that our listeners can use to impress people at our dinner party or bar or something like that. You got some for us?
I do have one that I've used many times. So I live in Santa Monica, and just like pretty much any resident of Southern California, we have a fault nearby. And so I like to point out where the faults are near whatever event I'm attending, because usually you can spot them pretty easily once you know what you're looking for.
Well, you can just see them out in the world. You're just walking along going,
there's one on the golf course in Rustic Canyon. You can see.
Yeah, oftentimes. Yeah. So like, in Santa Monica, it's the Santa Monica Fault. It crosses Wilshire at a certain spot. And once you tell people where that is, they're all like, "Oh yeah, I've noticed that little change in slope right there," and they're pretty interested to find out that's the fault.
My wife would call all the faults Jim because everything's my fault.
Wait, so where's the fault? It's Wilshire and.
So this is the Santa Monica Fault. There's many faults all throughout California.
Yeah.
This particular one, if you can imagine the coastline, where in Malibu you have kind of that east-west coastline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you just extended that into LA, that's pretty much the Santa Monica Fault.
And you can tell it because the ground shifts a little. Is what you're saying?
It's a vertical offset. Yeah.
You could live there and tell everyone you're always. Oh, that joke won't work. Oh, you're always at fault.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Right.
No, with Rustic Canyon, where we play golf on the first hole, right by the green, there's a fault line right there. They tell you
there's like a little canyon there, yeah.
like that. It's a fault line. They've said it. I'll show it to you next time.
Well, it wouldn't change my game.
Yeah, you have to hit a ball over it.
You can have an earthquake while I'm swinging. It won't make any difference.
Yeah. So you can see the fault lines. I think if you looked online, probably you could say fault lines in my area.
Probably that's the only way I could hit the ball 250.
Yeah. All right. Well, there are faults in your area. Look it up, everybody, and then impress people. Jonathan, Stewart, thank you for being with us today. I didn't know if I didn't even ask. We didn't promote. Is there any social media or any books that you have or anything that you'd like us to promote? We didn't promote anything for you.
Yeah, I don't do much in the social media area. The engineering school does. So
I'm like you, mate. Bloody annoying.
You don't any books.
They're probably not going to want to promote this with all the swears.
So
and
I
that's
write
fine.
I'm working on a book, but I write articles for journals.
Well, when your book's done, let us know and we'll promote it on here, and we'll get some people to buy it for you.
Are you busy after an earthquake? Like you have to do the rounds and everything? Like you have an earthquake?
I'm very busy.
Yeah, so there's an earthquake and you're like, oh, God, I'm going to be flat out tomorrow.
Yeah. No, when a big one happens in LA, I'll be pretty visible in the press and I'll be coordinating all kinds of researchers. So, yeah, it'll be a busy time.
It's the same as me whenever a comedian gets in trouble for saying something stupid. People ring me up like, you've said stupid things. And you're like, I have. Yeah, but do you think people should be allowed to say stupid things? I don't know.
The link to the Samueli school is samueli.ucla.edu if you want to check that out. I just saw Christine put it in the chat.
Well, thanks for being on the podcast, Jonathan. We appreciate it here. Look, ladies and gentlemen, if you're ever at a party and someone says the earthquake is not a Richter scale, it's called a seismology thing.
Wow, we really learned a lot this podcast. Yeah. You want to try again?
No.
Okay, sure. Try it again.
Go, I don't know about that. I'm just here for a drink.
That's true. I probably would say I don't know about that.
Yeah, you just go, what are you talking about? I'm just trying to have a fun time. Why are you in my house?
Okay. All
Good
right.
night, Australia.